Hadjar does sound like a nickname for a penis. Or have caught me Hadjar in the door.
Yeah,
Doesn't it? I mean, I guess because it sounds
it
like
does.
Tadger, I guess.
Hello, welcome back to The Fast and the Curious, the show that takes you inside the mad world of Formula One. We pick apart the key moments of the season, speak to some of the massive names from the sport, including the drivers, Kimi Antonelli being the latest. If you haven't listened, go back and watch or listen because he was brilliant. We also preview and debrief the races, which is what we're gonna do now. I'm Betty Glover, joined by Greg James and Christian Hugill. I got up at 6 a.m. for that race, everybody. That sleep I'm never, ever going to be able to get back. Oh, God.
We had, hi everybody, we had so many DMs and stuff of people going, should have stayed asleep for that one. One of the ones that you could happily watch at midday the next day, and it's actually fine. Christian, you're there. Do you wish that you hadn't gone to Japan?
Despite a heavily delayed flight that meant it took me longer to get to Japan than it did to get to Australia, no, I still am really glad I went. Japan's a very special place. Suzuka's a very special circuit. Feel very lucky to have been there, and I've had a lovely time. So, but in terms of whether the race was more exciting to watch from here, unfortunately, I love this sport with all my heart. But it still wasn't a cracker here, guys, was it? We might as well be honest about this.
Well, look, I think we were due one. I think we were due a boring weekend because, look, as I've said many times before, you can't get a hit without a few misses. And I think today was just one of those misses. A little trough. Then we'll be back next week, week after. All will be fine. But Betty, what was the bit that made you laugh from the cool-down room?
The cool-down room, by the way, was the best bit of the whole entire race. If you didn't watch it, then you missed it all, really. But it was so funny because they were watching back the highlights, Lando, Oscar and Max, and obviously, usually they're sat there sort of watching the highlights, talking them through. The highlights, they're and gone. If you blinked, you missed the highlights because there was barely anything. And Oscar was like, is that it? No other highlights? Nothing happened? Yes, Oscar, you are absolutely correct. That was it.
If the drivers are saying, "Is that it?" while watching it, what hope is there for the actual fans? Yeah. So, well, come on then. Give us the headline from Japan, Christian. What's the big headline from this weekend? Let's get those journalistic caps on. Hit me.
Okay, I'll put my journalist cap on. I think the headline is right. Okay, it wasn't an exciting race, but what it has done is set something really exciting up in that for those wanting a championship battle, which is most of us, right, is the best possible result for the championship. Yeah, unexciting Grand Prix, but sets the championship up really nicely.
That's a really good positive spin, Christian.
It's true, isn't it? And I got a little bit of stick for saying a couple of things in the last couple of weeks. One was that I think it's a three-way title fight between Lando, Oscar and Max. People going, Max can't be anywhere near. No, he can. Never doubt Max, because the man's a ridiculous man. A silly, ridiculous... Look what he did. Like, I spoke to actual Helmut Marko after the race. Can you believe it? And I said to him, could anyone other than Max have won that? And he's really bluntly went, no. In a Red Bull, I mean. He was ridiculous. So that's the big headline. And also the fact that, again, lots of people were saying, I think George Russell said this, that like, well, McLaren are so far ahead, it's not true. No, they're not. If they were, overtaking is hard around Suzuka. It's not impossible. If they were that far ahead, Max would have swept past. So I don't believe McLaren are a million miles in front. I think they're the quickest car, but I do still think 3 races in, we've got a 3-way title fight on this podcast with 3 presenters.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because, and I think it was Crofty that was saying this afterwards, that you've got this intriguing battle of like, you've got the best driver versus the fastest car, and who's going to come out on top.
Lovely point. Lovely point. Oh, and by the way, we need to say thank you to Crofty, because in Free Practice 1, and this is how committed our listeners are, here's me sat watching Free Practice 1 at work in actual Japan, happening in the afternoon. I had some UK-based listeners message me, a couple of American ones as well, but some UK ones going, Crofty's just giving you a shout-out for the Fast and the Curious interview with Kimmy in Free Practice 1. 2 o'clock in the morning that was happening, and our listeners are up. You lot love it, don't you, Fast and Curious fans? You lot love this.
That's lovely.
Ridiculous sport.
And we should, let's shout Crofty out for his unbelievably stupid pun at the end of the coverage this morning.
What was this? I didn't hear this.
He said, it just goes to show that you've got to max your opportunities when they come your way. And Verstappen did just that.
He is
Also, before the race, I spoke to Crofty, and what did Crofty predict? He'll love that I'm saying this. What did Crofty predict? It'll be a dull race. The McLarens won't be able to get past. Max will win. Called it. He ain't daft, is he?
It was basically sorted in qualifying, wasn't it? Qualifying was the big thing.
It did seem like the only place to overtake was maybe the pit lane, which I'm sure we'll get onto later, which was my absolute favourite bit of the race. Obviously, the only thing that happened in the race.
Let's get onto it now. Let's get onto the pit lane.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to get onto.
What else do we talk about, Greg?
No, well, I thought you were going to go and talk about qualifying stuff, but I guess, yeah, it was dominated by qualifying. Yada, 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 boring. But the actual overtake in the pits from when Lando and Max went at the same time, and Lando thought, oh, maybe I could overtake him on the pit lane exit. That's normally what happens. What on earth was going on there, Christian?
Well, yeah, we should say that because McLaren won the Constructors' Championship, they get the sort of primary pit lane slot, and that is, sometimes it's at the very start of the pit lane, sometimes at the very end. With this one, it was at the very end, so Max is trundling down the pits from behind because Red Bull finished behind in the Constructors' Championship. Lando pulls out, and Max didn't really do anything wrong. Lando's pulling out. They pull alongside each other, and Lando thinks, I'll try and muscle in here, and very much ran out of road and went on the grass. And by the way, one thing I loved was that Lando went on the radio and went, he pushed me off, and Max went, he was being far too aggressive. No, he meant it. They absolutely knew that there was nothing wrong there, and Max knew that Lando didn't deserve a penalty. Lando knew that Max didn't deserve a penalty, but they still went at each other, still playing the game a little bit there, which I really, really liked. But that was completely fair game. But hey, listen, from Lando's perspective, why not have a go? From Max's perspective, absolutely not, my friend. I'm staying here, thank you very much. You're going nowhere near me.
Yeah, and Lando afterwards was like, Max was never going to give me room. He just wasn't ever going to give me room. But to quote the cool-down
I didn't see he'd done that.
Yeah. And to quote the cool-down room again, Max also said, that is a very expensive lawnmower. And Lando was like, yeah, that's what I was doing. I was just intending on cutting grass.
To make sure it didn't catch fire.
Yeah.
You're right, Betty. The cool-down room was the best bit of the entire race.
Yeah, it genuinely was. We did get a listener question in from Rochelle. She said, if Lando stayed behind Max after the pit stop, could he have used DRS to overtake?
In theory, yeah, but unfortunately, the DRS detection zone starts all the way back round the lap again. So, by which point, I don't think he'd have been in the DRS detection zone. So, in theory, yes, he could have done. In practice, that wouldn't have worked.
Christian Hugo, why is it that Max Verstappen loves the Japanese Grand Prix so much? He's the first driver to win 4 consecutive Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. Is it because he can just lock in and go into that sort of fugue state and just go, I've just got to stay out in front because it's going to be hard to overtake. I'm just going to stay out in front. Is it because the mission is simple?
No, I don't think it is. I think there's 2 elements to that. For the previous 3 years, he's definitely had the quickest car. But this year he didn't. What Max is so good at is 2 things. One is extracting the most out of the car. And it's a hard circuit. There's weather affects you here. There's wind. There's no runoff. It's tight. It's twisty. It's one of the most tricky circuits. And who shines when it's a tricky circuit? The very best drivers. I've had a long weekend with not much sleep. Who shines?
No one shines with a tricky cervix.
No one shines with a tricky cervix. I'm Christian Hugill. Good evening. Yeah. Who shines when it's tricky is the best drivers. So I think, the fact that he did such a perfect, special, one of the great F1 qualifying laps, really, to put it on pole, shows you how good he is. And then the fact that in a race, because, Rochelle's question about DRS, well, where that could have happened is to say Max dips a wheel on the gravel, makes a mistake, then one of those McLarens is right in the DRS zone, then he is in trouble, then he is going to lose the place. It's because of his brilliance that he has to drive the perfect race and the perfect qualifying session, and he did that. What Helmut Marko said to me is undoubtedly true. I genuinely believe it. He is currently the best Formula One driver on the grid. He's one of the best of all time. He won that race because he was a cut above, not just in the race, but in qualifying as well. It was really special for Max this weekend.
Yeah, he's so good. His qualifying was next level, wasn't it? But how do you guys think that Max is going to cope with being the one that has to hunt? He's so used to being hunted. He's so used to being dominant at the front, sort of leading the pack. And now the roles have sort of reversed. I wonder how he'll cope with that this season.
Feels like he's really up for it.
Yeah.
You don't see a chink in the armour at all. You just feel like he looks really relaxed in the press conferences. He's having a go back at the journalists as always. He's sort of joking around a little bit. I just think he's a psychopath, right? Like a lot of these drivers are, but the drivers sort of have to be. Like they all have it in them to be psychopathic and like, yeah, I'm just going to drive at 200 miles an hour next to your wheel. Yeah, I don't care that I smashed it into the barriers. I'm just going to go again tomorrow. Don't worry about it. They really are. I see that I always think that, Betty, because we're impressing what we'd be like.
Yeah.
But they're not like us. They have several screws loose.
I mean, I can't even reverse my car in Tesco car park, let alone drive around a track at that speed. Jesus.
But it feels like we actually talked to Max. Sorry, Christian. We talked to Max a bit about this, and I think it was you, Betty, who said, "Do you ever get bored winning all the time?" And there's probably a little bit of like, yeah, a bit. He wanted to get into racing to race, not just to be out in front. So I think this battle is sort of weirdly right up his street and might give him renewed energy.
Also, just on that, if let's say Max did manage to win the drivers this season, which, who knows what will happen, no one will be able to go, oh, well, he's just won it because Red Bull have got the best car. Because that's always the caveat. That's always been the caveat, hasn't it?
Well, they couldn't say that last year. Couldn't say that last year. They didn't have the best car from round 5 Miami last year. So, but Betty, it would be even more exaggerated this year. You're absolutely right, Betty.
Well, because McLaren have the best and the fastest car, don't they? So I just think it would be really interesting.
The thing that I think he's thriving on is, all weekend I watched every second of every practice session, and he's coming on the radio all the time, going, "We've got this problem, we've got that problem." And then he's great at giving the feedback, so he will get the car in the best place it can be. And then when it counts, he'll go and squeeze every bit out of it. But because, there will be moments this year where the McLarens take points off each other. There will be reliability issues. And I've said this already this season. I'm going to keep saying it. If Max can pick up the odd win like he's done here, where he can give himself the position to do so, if he can then go in consistently with second, third, fourth place, he's going to be in this championship hunt right until the end. And listen, we want a close battle. People do want, there are fans out there who want to see someone else other than Max win the championship. But actually, this is exciting. Like, it's a three-way title fight. And again, Oscar showed this weekend he's got speed. He pushed Lando. Lando showed, he did a better job than Oscar in qualifying, and Oscar couldn't get past him in the race. Both McLarens made mistakes in qualifying on their final runs. That's why Max won the race ultimately. But listen, all three of those are capable of fighting for a world championship. But Oscar and Lando have been reminded that in order to win the championship, they're both going to have to level up because they made mistakes in qualifying and Max didn't.
There's an element of being able to be the hero as well, which will appeal to Max, because the turmoil at Red Bull the last year or so, the driver swapping, the story that the car's not quite as good as it was. Like that all surely feeds him such energy to go, right, if I win now, that makes me even better than people think I am. Does I think that's part of it as well. This sort of, you've got to have something to push against, really, haven't you? You have to have some friction. I think he's found it with that team and being like, you know what, this is all on me. I'm going to show everyone. So should we get on to McLaren then? So out-qualified by Max Verstappen over the weekend. They'll be frustrated that they couldn't get the victory, but second and third, I guess, is okay for now, isn't it? That's the marker where they've got to, where they'll be disappointed they didn't get a win.
They'll leave this weekend being disappointed they didn't have the win because they do have the best car. And the reason one of their drivers didn't win the race is because they both made mistakes in qualifying, so they'll be disappointed. Where they'll be pleased is they still have the best car. And in terms of you're looking at the Constructors' Championship, it's second and third. It is not disastrous by any stretch of the imagination for McLaren. Both drivers still in the hunt, drivers title-wise, well up there constructors-wise, well up there pace-wise. You're not going to win every race. Some weekends are going to get away from you. Neither Lando nor Oscar need to come away being hard on themselves. Yeah, they made tiny mistakes in qualifying, but they're going to. Lando didn't put a foot wrong all weekend in Australia. Oscar didn't put a foot wrong all weekend in China. All right, they both made tiny mistakes in qualifying. They're the fine margin. So far from disastrous for McLaren. And they'll go into Bahrain. It'll be interesting, actually, in Bahrain next weekend. Historically, not a brilliant track for them. So if they can go in and still be the quickest car there, they'll be very, very pleased because it's not historically a great track for them. We'll talk more about that in the preview show next week. But, you know, and the big mistake for McLaren this weekend, the big mistake for me was on strategy. I think that was a mistake, Betty.
Yeah, so the question that I was going to ask you is, Lando and Oscar didn't put a foot wrong in the race, but what should McLaren have done differently?
So, well, to answer your question, something different. I think that's the key. When you're chasing, Max came into the pits first. In that case, Lando, stay out. You always try and do something different in order to do the undercut or the overcut. Also, they brought Piastri in early. Oscar came in earlier so he pitted on lap 21. Both Lando and Max pitted on lap 22. Now, I can understand what McLaren were trying to do. They were probably trying to use Oscar for the undercut. But in doing that, they forced Max into pit, and then, confusingly, Lando pitted as well. One of the two of them out of ran long, or one of the two of them out of Oscar I think, easy to say in hindsight, easy to say in the heat of battle. What I'd have been tempted to do is say to Lando, do whatever Max doesn't, and run Oscar long. Actually, run Oscar long rather than run him short. That's what I'd have done in the heat of battle. And
was that because Oscar was struggling with his tyres, though, that they felt?
Yeah, it would have been. Yes, it would have been. It would have been. But still, whether he could have eaten them out, I don't know. Listen, there's no easy way. There's no right or wrong answers. And just to explain why I'd have done that, it's because what we call the undercut or the overcut. For a reminder for those new to Formula One, if you get out of the dirty air of the car in front of you by going long or going short, as I say, compared to your rival, you release the car in clean air. The theory is you can therefore go faster, make up time on track, and come in and out of the pits quicker than the guy in front of you. That's what we talk about when we do the undercut or the overcut. So the big thing is, if I was Lando Norris's team, I'd be saying, do what Max doesn't. I would have, when Max came into the pits, I'd have stayed out. They didn't, but listen, these things are easy to say in hindsight, and it's not easy.
Yeah, because they spent the whole race in dirty air, didn't they?
Yeah, it was so tight. It's so tight, and they didn't have the car advantage to sweep past. You know, if the car was, George said at one point, McLaren have a bigger advantage than Red Bull ever did. If that was the case, they'd have still been able to sweep past on the DRS zone going down into turn one, but they didn't. They simply didn't. The car isn't that superhumanly quick. It just isn't. So yeah, disappointing for McLaren, but far from the end of the world. I think they'll dust themselves down very quickly and be back on it next weekend. I don't think it's the end of the world.
Again, only 3 races in, so they're still getting used to being at the front. They're still getting used to winning and getting used to working out
being
how
the favourites, Greg.
Yeah, how do we manage being the favourites? How do we manage Lando and Oscar being the two big star drivers? That's tricky for them to get their heads around. As is working out how to deal with Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. He's clearly still finding his feet with the communication between the team and him out on the track. I really, really, really loved and felt sorry for everyone involved when he was having a go at his team on the radio saying, tell me, I'm going to need to know, guys, which corners am I slow on? And basically the message came back saying, corner 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 19, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I just felt I found that sort of
29.
Sort of quite amusing that they haven't quite got that. It's nice to see behind the scenes that all these things are a work in progress to a certain extent, even at Ferrari, even if you're Lewis Hamilton. I also said that I really enjoyed Jacques Villeneuve on commentary. I thought he was quite fun. I enjoyed that. I liked him in a different voice, and he was just being quite fun. He was being quite funny about Oscar and Lando. He was talking about whether drivers think about the championship while they're racing, and Crofty was like, they say they don't think about it, and Jacques Villeneuve was like, they are not telling the truth.
Yeah. He was like, no, they do. They're lying.
He said Crofty was like, when you won it in 90, did he win it in 97? Was that when it was?
He did.
He said,
97.
when were you thinking about the championship? And he went, I was thinking about winning the title at qualifying before Melbourne, the first Grand Prix of the season. That's when I was thinking about
He was thinking about winning the title in 1996 in his debut year with Damon Hill as his teammate. Because he could have won it in his debut year. Fact, fans.
Anyway, so I enjoyed that. But yeah, there's obviously this big battle that's brewing between Oscar and Lando. That is going to pay off at some point. This storyline is just getting going, and at some point, Betty, it's gonna reach ahead, isn't it?
Well, Gunther Steiner said to us, didn't he, Greg, that he thought it would be this weekend in Japan that it would reach ahead, and it could have potentially, because Oscar was there going, guys, I've got pace. I think I can take Max on here. I think I can take Max on. Put me in front of Lando, sort of like, he wasn't as direct as that, but he was going, I've got pace, I could probably take Max on. McLaren just weren't even entertaining it at all. Rightly or wrongly, arguably, you could argue that if Oscar did sort of overtake Lando, probably wouldn't have overtaken Max as well. But do you think they should have given him the chance, Christian?
No. If you're quicker, Oscar, overtake Lando would be my advice. Don't be asking your team to switch them, because, my goodness me, if it was the other way around, you wouldn't be happy. You can't go... I mean, what they could have done is go, tell you what, Lando, we're going to swap positions, and then you go and have a go at Max, and then if it doesn't work, we'll swap them back. But I'm sorry, Lando beat Oscar in qualifying. Lando stayed ahead during the race. You don't know how much Lando's tyres were harder done to by staying behind Max. There's various... Now, that might not have been the case, but might have been. I don't think that would have been fair on Lando to go and do that. And to your point, Betty, I don't think Oscar would have been able to. Now, it's a very different story if Oscar's throwing it up the inside of Lando, and it's clear there that it's clear, if you don't mind, it's clear that one is quicker than the other. But to me, that's not something I'm going to criticise McLaren for today. Definitely would have said they could have done something different strategy-wise, but on that particular point, not for me, Clive. I think on that particular point, they handled that okay.
I also think Oscar agreed, to be fair, at the end. He was like, yeah, it was fair the way we finished. But it was just interesting.
Celebrity listener.
Please.
Celebrity listener who came up to me and said how much she was enjoying the podcast.
Who?
Lily, girlfriend of Oscar Piastri.
Oh, Lily!
Oh,
who we all got to know and chatted to at Silverstone.
We
Absolutely
did.
lovely. Hi, Lily. We love your work. We love Oscar Piastri, as I told her. So, yeah, nice to have a celebrity listener, isn't it?
Kimi Antonelli had a nice weekend, didn't he?
Love Kimi.
Youngest ever driver to lead a Grand Prix, to lead an F1 race, and got the fastest lap as well. That's good. It's all going very well for him.
Shame you don't get points anymore for that, eh?
Well,
Would have been an extra point. No, I continue to be very impressed with Kimi Antonelli. I spoke to our friend Bradley Lord a couple of times this weekend, and the whole team are very impressed with him. To be as close as he is to George. George is having a brilliant season. I don't think they could have done anything differently today, Mercedes. I think 5th and 6th after qualifying was the best they're going to have done. But for Kimi to be right up there already, And also, we had a bit of a debrief on the Kimi chat, but his maturity was so impressive. And by the way, a lot of people in Formula One heard that chat and enjoyed it and were impressed by how relaxed Kimi was and just... He's great. I'm really, really impressed by Kimi Antonelli. The thing, one of the storylines of the season going in was, will Kimi live up to the hype? So far, so good. He's doing really, really well. I think it's a really impressive debut.
Yeah, he's so impressive, isn't he? But so is Isack Hadjar and Ollie Behrman in the points again, both having a brilliant start to their rookie seasons. You were particularly impressed with Isack, weren't you, Christian?
Yeah, another one who I interviewed for the first time this weekend, and it was after free practice 2. Famously, not the most exciting part of the weekend post free practice 2, but he came out of that session like he'd just won the World Cup. He bounced into the media pen to talk to me. I had a chat to him and said, it's been quite an encouraging start to the weekend. Oh, more than encouraging. And it was like, oh my God, this kid's having the best time. He just looked like he was so much enjoying himself. And that is the key to being a successful sports person. Enjoy what you do. We don't get hit by the pressure. Now, it's impressive twofold. A, because you're in a very cutthroat atmosphere at Red Bull. If you get into any of those 4 seats that they own on the grid, you know you've got to perform. B, because of his heartbreaking debut, where it went so well all weekend. Then he made a mistake, and it was the cruelest debut in the world. Then he got... stick from some corners of the world for not, for crying and all that sort of thing, and some harsh comments from Helmut Marko. He has recovered so well. Antonelli, Hadjar, also, and while we're throwing praise at the rookies, Ollie Behrman as well. Brilliant for Haas this weekend. Brilliant qualifying, held his own in the race, kept Fernando Alonso and Yuki Tsunoda behind him. So impressive from Ollie Behrman as well. So the rookies are doing fantastically. It's brilliant for the sport. Those 3 in particular, they had great weekends. Hadjar in the points, Behrman in the points, Antonelli in the points. Brilliant for Formula One that young, exciting kids are doing so well. They were so great. And it was just nice to speak to Isack, because it was just like, I tell you, I just like seeing them have a nice time. I really do. I like seeing them enjoy it. It's infectious.
Just while we're talking about Isack Hadjar, the thing that I think he deserves extra credit for this weekend, because he's had such a tough ride, hasn't he? Because in qualifying, he had to come back in because of seatbelt issues, because of his balls were getting squashed, and it was very uncomfortable, and he was in a lot of pain. And he was going through all of this. And then during the race, he's on the radio, being like, I've unlocked a new problem. The seat is moving. I'm okay, but the seat is now not attached. So he's having all sorts of issues in that cockpit. But look at him go.
Cockpit being the operative word there.
Yeah. Hadjar does sound like a nickname for a penis. Have caught me Hadjar in the door.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I mean, I guess because it sounds like Tadger, I guess.
Tadger, yeah.
Isack Hadjar.
That's
I was pleased for him. Look, there was so much pressure. There's one other thing before we, I guess we're almost ready to wrap up. We've covered all the big bits. But the thing we haven't mentioned, of course, is Liam Lawson, that was the big story the week going into this Grand Prix. And what do we make of the Lawson-Tsunoda switch? Sort of didn't really come to anything, did it, essentially, this weekend?
Yuki started the weekend so damn impressively. In practice 1 in particular, it was like a 10th off Max, and it was like, wow. And actually, I still think over the course of the weekend, Yuki's pace was really encouraging. I think, yes, all right, Yuki finished 12th, so on paper, not getting the Red Bull in the points, not great. But we know it was a strange race where there was no overtaking. So, yes, you can sort of forgive him. I actually still think there was plenty to be encouraged by for Yuki Tsunoda. Again, a scrappy qualifying. Now, normally you'll have the opportunity to recover from that. Scrappy qualifying, you can forgive. I'm not too worried. And actually, you could say the same for Liam Lawson. His pace early on in the weekend, he'll be really disappointed because all weekend it looked like the RB had pace. It looks really quick. They've done a great job with that car. So, again, scrappy qualifying, whereas Isack got up there. But it's getting the same. Look at Esteban Ocon in the Haas. Clearly, the Haas has got pace. Scrappy qualifying. Ocon finished 18th. Ollie Behrman finished 10th. It's not... And Esteban's had a great start to the season at Haas. He's a good driver. It's not necessarily an unusual thing for a rookie. These things happen. So I'm actually not worried about either of them. I think they both settled back in well. I actually think Liam will go on to score points and have a good season. I'm convinced about that. I think he'll be absolutely fine. Where his career goes long term after that, let's see. Yuki, still too early to tell how that move will go. I still actually think, despite the no points, pretty encouraging start from Yuki Tsunoda. And also, another one I spoke to the weekend, just very impressed by his calmness. For all people have turned around and said, oh, his temperament and all of this, his feedback on the radio was great. His general aura around the paddock, it's his home race where everyone's absolutely fanatic about Yuki, all the pressure. He soaked it all up and actually... Yeah, I made a mistake in quali, but as we said earlier, so did Lando, so did Oscar. It's a tricky circuit, it happens. Fine for both counts, I think, there.
Just before we wrap up, just want to flag, Alex Albon is at the top of the radio radar today.
Betty's radio radar returns by popular demand.
Radar, I know. Because he was just so grumpy. He swore quite a lot. My favourite bit was when he was like, honestly, you guys make absolutely no sense. And the engineer was like, okay. And then Albon was like, ridiculous. And the engineer was like, Behrman's pitted. Albon, yeah, well, pit before then. He was just not in the mood today, was he? Absolute sass.
There's a serious point with it, though. It's very funny. Sass, funny, like a grumpy teenager. Very, very funny. But it's actually quite impressive. I think James Vowles will like this because he knows he needs to perform this year against his race-winning teammates. And actually, he is demanding improvements. He's showing that team leadership role, that how often do we see other drivers up and down the grid sort of when they feel they need to, leading for the cockpit. Anyone in any work situation should feel comfortable with being challenged and being made to feel better. And I think Alex is doing that. So I don't hate that from Alex. I think, everybody, it's part of the game getting grumpy on the radio. They're literally driving at 200 miles per hour. It's ridiculous. It's a stupid thing to do on a Sunday afternoon. So the fact that they get a bit hepped up, fine. I actually quite like it. And again,
no issues.
More points from Alex. Another great weekend for him. Carlos, I'm not worried about. I do think Carlos is still getting used to it. I don't have any worries about Carlos. I think he'll be fine.
Greg's still not worried about Carlos because he predicts that he's going to win every Grand Prix every weekend. So.
Yeah, I'll actually change. Sure. Oh, hang on. Whose predictions came true this
None
weekend?
of us, I don't think.
I didn't do a pre-race prediction, but what I did say post-quali was that I didn't think Max would have the pace to win the race, which proves that I know nothing about Formula One and I'm a charlatan.
Well, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Betty. We'll be back next week with a Bahrain preview with a special guest as well. It's going to be Damon Hill. That's going to be fun, isn't it?
Always wanted to have Damon Hill on the podcast. Really looking forward to that. And I am interviewing Damon Hill approximately 5 hours after landing back in the UK. What state I'll be in. You think I'm incompetent now? You wait till that. So it will be a Damon-led podcast. Thank God we've got a world champion because you won't have a competent presenter, unfortunately, on this occasion.
That's fine. If anyone's got any questions for Damon, let us know. Get in touch at Fast Curious Pod.
Please do. Or wants to come on and host the episode, alternatively. Actually, because you two aren't around, I'll be very tired. So, actually, not just sending you questions. Turn up at my flat and sit on my little home studio. I'll make you a coffee if you like, or I'll just nap while you do it. I'm not looking forward to speaking to Damon. It's not that I don't want to speak to Damon. It's just I'll be quite tired. I'm going now.
He sounds mad now. Let's fade him down.
Let's fade
Christian,
him down. Let's get rid of him.
Thank you for jumping on at the end of a very long weekend for you. Happy flights back, and we'll see you next week. Betty, thank you for interrupting your Sunday, even for the most boring race of all time, potentially.
It's on my T-shirt. It's fine.
We didn't mention Betty's T-shirt. This is a whole section of the show. For those watching on the YouTube, Betty, would you like to describe your T-shirt?
Yeah, so I've got the Suzuka Circuit on my T-shirt.
Where did you get that from?
So I got sent it by a lovely guy called Lab Design on Instagram. Go and have a look. They create so many nice
they're
T-shirts,
great.
jumpers. They've sent you one before, I believe, Christian.
I've got a Silverstone one. They're lovely.
Yeah.
Lab Designs, aren't they? They're really good.
They're really nice, and it's like stitched on. It's really, really good quality, good material. Shame I got this one, to be honest, because the race was boring.
No, it's a nice circuit, though.
It's a
nice circuit, and it's an iconic circuit. Yeah, I mean, they're not paying for this, so we're giving them a lovely free plug. But these genuinely nice stuff.
Let's relax on the shout outs for a company that's not paying us and hasn't sent me a shirt, so they can off. Have a great weekend, everyone. And we'll be back with the debrief with Damon Hill next week. Bye!
Bye!
Bye-bye!